All right, so we're going to do some serious talking here today. Enough messing around. Let's talk about enlightenment. So, I have to say, it is important to take into context when I speak. In other words, what I talked about last time and how it's going, and the effect of what I was talking about last time and then today. Now, of course, it's okay to just come in and watch whenever you watch, especially if you're coming in brand new. But it's important to understand what message is wanting to come through me here. So we talked last time about the true God of death. And we talked about death and enlightenment is not what people think. I'm human too, so it takes one to know one. We look at things being blissful and wonderful. We don't understand the sacrifice. We understand sacrifice as long as somebody else is doing it, right? Like in the Christian tradition, Jesus sacrificed, or actually he didn't willfully sacrifice himself. He was forced to sacrifice himself. But he had to go through a pretty dreadful scenario, if you choose to believe that. Of course, I don't, but if you choose to believe that. And we're okay with somebody else doing it. But when we got to do it, no, then we want to buy into the new age. Everything is beautiful and love and enlightenment and, which isn't to say that there isn't tremendous bliss as a result of it. I believe that Odin is a deity of bliss. I believe that he exists in a state of bliss that we can't comprehend. And I think that if you and I were to step into his state of being, it would be too much for us. Way too much for us. And it would be very blissful. But, I'm getting overwhelmed with a bunch of thoughts and feelings. When I want to talk about this, I feel the presence of Odin very strongly. I have to say that Odin is probably one of the most misunderstood deities that there is. And he is most misunderstood by those who claim to follow him. And there's a reason for that. I won't get into that right now, but in any case, we are going to talk about Odin and Odin's sacrifice on the tree of life, and we are going to talk about the difference between self-sacrifice and the sacrifice of others. So we are going to talk a lot about that. So first off, let's just start with the basics in case you don't know. So Odin. Odin is the pronunciation of the Scandinavian people, but that's actually not the correct pronunciation of his name. The earlier correct pronunciation of his name is Woden. 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 Woden means he who consists of, who is made up of, who is consumed by Wod. So the suffix en means consists of, made of, full of, right? If you have a wooden door, it is a door made of wood. If you have golden coins, it means you have coins made of gold. Now it's an older linguistic holdover, and modern English doesn't use it all that much. But that's what it means. So Woden is he who consists of Wod. And what I'm going to share with you here is that in his sacrifice, the entity who eventually became Woden was not Woden when he started. When he began his sacrifice, he was not Woden. whoever and whatever this entity was completely lost his identity and became Woden. And there's a lesson in that, and I'm going to give it to you because it comes directly from the mythology, from the lore, which means that each of us can become Woden. So why don't I go ahead and just read that to you now, in case you're not familiar with the lore. But even if you are, perhaps I will reveal something you might not completely know about it. So again, this is an English translation taken from the lore about Odin's sacrifice on the Tree of Life. The Tree of Life, by the way, is referred to as the World Tree, and it is its name is Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil. Yggdrassil. It means the steed, the horse of Ygg. Who is Ygg? Ygg comes from the same root where we get the word ugly, Ugly. In Old English, it would have been Ygliche. Ygg, we still have it. When you talk to kids, when you see things that are really part of what we think are slang speech, is actually part of really ancient Indo-European words. So what happens when you see something horrifying? You go, ugh, ugh, right? It's changed now. We think of something as kind of gross. You go, ugh, U-G-H. That comes from ugh. Ugly in modern English means unattractive. But ugliche meant something that was frightening to behold, something that was so frightening, terrifying. So Ugg means terrifying. So that's important. This is one of his names, terrifying. And the Tree of Life is he who is terrifying's horse, the horse of the terrifying one. What is terrifying about Odin? People want to call him the god of war. They want to call him the god of rage. And there is some truth to that, but it's not rage like I'm going to kill you, I hate you, It's not that kind of rage. And that's a childish understanding. That is a superficial, childish understanding of Woden, of Ugg. It's terrifying to us. But he's not coming from that place. He is ruthless in that he is completely devoted to his own self-awareness. So much so, he does not care what you think. And when he achieves the ultimate, when he becomes completely absorbed, when he is completely engulfed in the flames of his own awareness, he becomes Ugg. He becomes the terrifying one. Not because he's in a state of trying to frighten anybody. He's not thinking about death or rage as we know it. He has completely sacrificed his own ego, his own identity, into the pure essence of being, which when you get to the pure essence of being is incredibly blissful, amazingly blissful. So from his perspective, he's caught up in complete bliss. So why would that frighten us? Why is that frightening? Because of what I said earlier. In order to get to that state, you must completely lose your identity. So remember, if you watched what I talked before, if you haven't, go back and watch me talk about Ketu, the true god of death, the god who destroys and obliterates your identity, who is the god of enlightenment. Can't have one without the other. That's the first step. You want to become Odin? Then you have to be willing to have your ego completely obliterated. And that is frightening. For those of us who have an ego, I do. Those of us that have an identity, you can't be in the physical form without having an identity. It's not possible. For those of us that have that, when we see somebody who is completely, totally engulfed in their own undifferentiated essence, it is frightening as hell. It will be the most frightening thing you've ever seen. So his name is Ug. As it so happens, his counterpart in one of the other major Indo-European religions, in fact, the only existing Indo-European religion that has an unbroken connection into our prehistory, goes all the way back to the first humans. The first Indo-European people is the Vedic Hindu religion. I am editing myself so much. There's so many things I want to jump in and say, editorializing it, but I'm trying to stay on focus here. That they are the only people, the only society in the world that retains its uninterrupted Indo-European tradition all the way back to the beginning. And as such, they will never be conquered. India will never be conquered for that reason. Every other Indo-European culture, religion, language has walked away from its essence. So I say this to, again, I know that there are going to be people that come onto this video who are of the folkish Asatru, pride in their ancestry, as they should. Well, they should. But they bring oftentimes a childish exclusion. Little kids are like that. Mine. And they bring superiority. And they have a complete misunderstanding of what it is they claim to have so much pride in. Not everybody. And by the way, if you get angry when I say that, if you get defensive when I say that, then you're not secure in your own pride in your own heritage. Because if you are secure in the pride of your own heritage, then you have no problem whatsoever pointing out the faults and the mistakes that your ancestors have made. I have no problem pointing out the faults of my immediate ancestors going back at least for the past 1,000 years. You can talk about how horrible the white man is, and you can talk about the horrible things that have been perpetrated by other people and the soulless white men, and I'm going to stand by you and agree with you absolutely 100%. I will not take any of that personally because it's true. Why is it true? Because our ancestors walked away from our true shamanic religion. We walked away from it. And that's the epitome of the soulless person. And what happened when those Europeans who had walked away from their ancestral tradition, what is it that they went and did? They went and conquered other people, racially dominated them. And it's important to understand that 2,000 years ago, the minority were white people. White people were looked upon as the least civilized. The way we look at the lost tribes of Papua New Guinea, these tribal people who have never seen who've never been contacted by the modern. There's a lot, by the way. Papua. We talk about the rainforest of South America. There are far more uncontacted tribes, I believe, in New Guinea than there are. Those are the original people that came over from Africa and made their way. And the way we look at those people, whether it's uncontacted tribes and wherever, that's how Germanic people were looked upon by the rest of the world, the rest of the civilized world. So I find it ironic and outright hypocritical for white supremacists to have any sort of pride without understanding. If you can't relate, if you can't look at every single human being as your brother and sister and family member, then you do not, I repeat, you do not know who Odin is. But you want to learn, and that I respect. And so since our ancestors walked away from our traditions, we are infants. The pagan, the Asatru, the heathen movement it's in its infancy. And infants are immature. Infants are selfish, and they're territorial. They, anal retentive and judgmental. So, anyway, it's very hard for me to talk about Odin without having to go there because, Odin is the least prejudice entity there is, the least exclusive entity there is. Any case, I'll stop talking about that because if you want to talk about rage, I could get very rageful about that. In any case, the name Ug is also found in the East Indian tradition. One of the names for Shiva is Ugra. Ugra means same thing, fearful. Comes from the same root of Ug. And so one could easily, and very, I believe, rightly so, make the connection that the entity who emerged, and they emerged around the same time, by the way. Shiva, as we understand him, did not exist in Vedic times. Shiva was one of the names of Indra. But he had not become, the Trinity as we know it now, of Shiva, Brahma, and Vishnu didn't exist in the way we know of it now. In Vedic times, Shiva was a name means auspicious, and it's one of the names of Indra. And it wasn't until later that Shiva took on his own identity, his own form. It was right around the same time, we think, because the Germanic people didn't have written histories, but it looks as though right around the same time the worship of Woden, he who is consumed with Wod, with self-awareness, became a focal point for the Germanic tribes. What does that tell you? That tells you that this entity, this essence, for whatever reason, chose to reveal himself at this same time among at least two, perhaps more, but at least two of the Indo-European people. The people we know of as the Vedic Hindus and the Germanic people. So we're going to talk a lot about that. Again, it's, when I start to talk about Woden, it becomes very difficult for me to stay in one place. I end up looking like this guy. I feel like this guy. I put that there for a reason, because that's what happens. That's what Woden is. And again, as I have already pointed out, in order to get to that place where you are that, you have to first have a complete death. Complete, total, utter eradication of your own identity. So I find it interesting, those that use Odin as a way, this is my identity and this is my ethnic background. Odin is for me and my people. You have no clue that he represents a complete, total eradication of your identity. Total eradication of your identity. Otherwise, you can't achieve what he achieved. So what did he achieve? I said I was going to read from the Norse mythology. So here's Odin speaking. He says, I know that I hung on a windy tree 9 long nights, wounded with a spear, dedicated to Odin, myself to myself, on that tree of which no man knows from where its roots run. No bread did they give me, nor a drink from a horn. Downwards I peered. I took up the runes. Screaming, I took them. Then I fell back from there. There's a lot in there, a lot of hidden secret messages in there that talk about the raising of Kundalini, that talk about um, enlightenment, that talk about, the spinal column. It's all in there. It's all in there. You got to, but again, you got to know what you're looking for. And if you don't know what you're looking for, it's going to be hard to see it. Our ancestors, 1,000, 2,000 years ago, had these secret things because, again, they had an unbroken tradition that went all the way back to those first Indo-Europeans. I wish I had a picture of it. You can look for it. I forget the name of it. There's an ancient Viking burial ship, and on the ship they buried staff carrier women. These were women shamanists, very powerful, very revered people in ancient Germanic society. And among the artifacts was a brass bucket, and on the brass bucket there was an individual, a man, who was sitting in full lotus. Now, this was 1,000 years ago, somewhere in Scandinavia. I can promise you that 1,000 years ago, they didn't travel to India and learn how to sit in full lotus and then come back. No. That means that our Germanic ancestors had this practice of what we now look at as yogic meditation. They had it as well, because it's part of the original Indo-European tradition. And they knew how to sit in full lotus, and they knew how to go into meditation. It's just what people did that were wizards, that were yogis. We call them yogis. We call them all kinds of things. We would now call them yogis, mystics, sorcerers, whatever word you want to use. So I forget where I was going with that, but the point is that, and I remember, that there's symbolism within the mythology that they knew that we have forgotten. And I'm going to get into it here. There's one real simple one. I've talked about this before. It's Thor, Thunar, Indra, the god of thunder and lightning. It is said that Thor wears a belt that doubles his strength. It is said that he wears iron gloves, and without the iron gloves, he cannot pick up his hammer, which is the thunder. How is it that a god can't pick up his hammer? He has to wear iron gloves? Now, you know that, iron gloves does not protect you. I mean, if you want to wear iron gloves and then stick your finger into a light socket, you're going to find out how to protect it. It's not going to protect you. It's going to intensify things. Why does he have to wear a belt? Somebody earlier last time wanted to know where to get the belt. People, you have to listen. You have to listen. This is symbolic. Whenever you see a Chinese person in meditation or doing Qigong, they wear these sashes. And our ancestors used to wear sashes around their midsection, around their navel. If you go watch yogis, they'll do the same thing. They'll wear sashes around their navel. Why do they do that? Because the navel center is the storage area for the life force energy. It also protects the kidneys and the adrenal glands, which is extremely important for life force energy work. Qigong. So that mythology tells you how to do Qigong. It tells you, number one, you have to empower the navel center, and you also have to empower and protect the kidneys and the adrenal glands. Now, you go to China, they know that. They ask them, why do you wear that? Oh, it's to protect the navel center and the kidneys and the adrenal glands. They know that. It's not they're not doing it for no reason. There's a reason for it. So why does he wear iron gloves? He wears iron gloves because what he's saying is that when you connect with that, when you empower the navel center, that what happens is the hands become very powerful conductors of life force energy, which is what metal is. It's a conductor of life force energy. So in order to pick up the hammer, Thor has to be able to conduct life force energy out of the palms of his hands. That's a lesson to us. If you want to do energy work, you have to first work with the navel center, and then be able to get the energy to come out of your palms, and then you'll be able to pick up the hammer. Now, nobody taught me that. I know that because I have trained in traditions that have an unbroken connection into prehistory. And when you live that, you can pick up any true mythology and immediately know what's being said there. If you pick it up and you don't know what it means that you don't have the secret knowledge. You don't have not only the secret knowledge, but the experience. So this is in here. So I give you all that. That's an easy one to look at. So we're going to talk about that. What is the tree of life? Odin says that Odin is said to ride the tree of life, Yggdrasil, the horse of Odin. Odin has what? An 8-legged horse. That he rides. The tree of life is none other than Yggdrasil. It's his horse, Sleipnir, Slipper. He can't have two horses. We're not aware that he has two horses. He has one horse. Yggdrasil is the horse. Yggdrasil is the tree. They talk about the tree of which no man knows from where its roots run. When you look at, let me find it here. Hang on a second. Let me find it here. Hang on just 1 second. I'm going to show you the two kinds of sacrifice, generally speaking, of Odin, and how people, how we either understand or misunderstand Odin's sacrifice here. Let me put those pictures in here. All right. Okay, so now it's saved in there. All right, so this is when people start wanting to simplify their understanding. They're going to talk about the sacrifice of Odin, the sacrifice of Jesus, and they're going to, other gods that have sacrificed themselves in mythology, and they're going to want to put them all together into one thing and say it all means the same thing, Jesus and Odin and blah, blah, blah. All right? So this is somebody's depiction of Odin's sacrifice on the tree. Ah, how cute. He looks so peaceful there. And like Jesus, he's been stabbed with a spear, and he looks so, peaceful and enlightened. That is a Christian perspective. That is not what is said about how Odin sacrificed himself. Here, I think, is a better. It's not my favorite, but I think this is a better representation of Odin's sacrifice on the tree. Doesn't say, but there is some indication here that he hung upside down on the tree. He wasn't hung right side up, he was hung upside down. How do I know that? Because it says here, I'll get to the very end here, but again, let's walk through the whole thing. I know that I hung upon a windy tree 9 long nights, wounded with a spear, dedicated to Odin, myself to myself, on that tree of which no man knows. Dedicated should actually be translated as sacrificed. Sacrificed to Odin, myself to myself. On that tree of which no man knows from where its roots run. No bread did they give me, nor a drink from a horn. Downwards I peered. I took up the runes. Screaming, I took them. Then I fell back from there. So, if he's looking downwards. It's kind of hard to do that when you're up here. You're looking down like that. If you're hanging, you're not going to be able to. Well, let me, and I'll reach down. I think he was hanging upside down, and then he looked downwards and reached, screaming, ah, screaming for the runes. What are the runes? The runes means sacred, secret whisper is one translation of the runes. And runes also means secrets. And of course, the runes are the 24 letters of the ancient Germanic alphabet. And I use the Elder Futhark, because I believe that represents the original Germanic language. You know, languages change over time, and Scandinavian especially changed a lot. And so even though I revere Old Norse, that is not the original language. So the original language is in the runes, the 3 sets of 8 syllables, you know, consonants and vowels. And these were sacred. And so it teaches us that language itself is a sacred, magical thing. You know, when we talk about spelling a word, the word S-P-L-L, spell, that comes from the original understanding that to be able to write a word was to cast a spell. If you were to write a word on something, that had the power to create it. It was a spell. It means when we speak, our ancestors years ago spoke. When they spoke, it was a spell. It was magical. It had meaning. It had purpose. It teaches you how to chant. There's a secret, you know, again, unless you know what you're looking for, you won't find it. And I'll share a little bit about that later. I'm getting overwhelmed with a lot of concepts here. So I'm going to take a short break and take a little bit of a break here. Again, if you're new to the channel, it helps if you just ask a question. I want to stress this again. The more that people have to type in hello to each other and type in their belief and I know a lot of people are supportive. Hey, look, yeah, that's right. A lot of people also want to come on and spout their opinion. That takes time away from me to be able to answer questions. You also can't listen while you're writing. And even if you're trying to participate in this discussion by saying something you think is cool about what I've just said, you're not hearing what's underneath that. Put the time and the effort to listen underneath that. Learn how to listen before you speak. Having said that, I can't stop you from doing anything, but if you have a question, write question in all caps. Otherwise, I will pass by it because, like I said, I'm not interested in your opinion. I want to look for the questions. Questions are what drives spiritual progress, not statements. Okay? Questions is what drives spiritual progress. All right, so I'm going to take a little break here, and then I'll come back and we'll start answering some questions, and we'll get deeper into the sacrifice of Odin. All right. There we go. There might be a few questions here, I think, so let's take a look. Okay, so, yeah, Miguel wrote a big, long question. Listen, YouTube is going to automatically block some things. And just to let you know, what you wrote in that question was seen as potentially, you know, stuff that needed to be deleted. So YouTube automatically does it. So just be aware. You know, people throwing stuff out. I know you have an honest question, but anyway, that's why a lot of stuff sometimes doesn't show up, because YouTube automatically will get rid of spam and stuff like that. All right, so let's see here. Lokya, question. Hey teacher, amazing to see you. I'm on retreat in the woods right now and just woke up with the flu. I've started doing celestial qigong yesterday and want to know, should I keep going? No. When you have the flu, rest. Qigong isn't going to help. You know, you need to do the opposite of qigong. You need to keep your energy internalized. You need to cleanse. So no, I wouldn't. Just, you know, let yourself heal. Interesting. You know, you've got the flu. It's probably a spiritual crisis. It's a cleansing crisis, probably. That's happened to me before. I was by myself in the woods for 2 weeks, and the first week I had the flu. It was awful. It's, you know, it was freezing cold. It was below freezing at night. I was bundled up in my. But you know, that's part of the shamanic experience. You're having a shamanic cleansing, I would say. Anyway, but do take care of yourself, please. Lots of liquids and whatnot. Dude with a hat, question. Does Odin need to retrieve his sacrificed eye? No. He's using it. So understand he's a god. And just like Tiu, who sacrificed his hand, a lot of sacrifice in the Germanic tradition. The gods sacrifice a lot of themselves. His hand, he still feels it. He doesn't have his right hand anymore because it's stuck in the wolf's mouth. He still feels it. Odin still sees out of his left eye. I mean, we don't know, it isn't said, but most of the time you see it's his left eye. And I think that's an accurate intuitive understanding, because what is the left eye connected to? It's connected to the right brain, right? The left eye is connected to the right brain. And what is the right brain? The right brain is the artistic side, the feminine side, the side of the brain that sees things holographically. It sees the relationships. It's the left side of the brain that says, this is good, that is bad, I'm better, you're worse, that's here, this is there. It's the right side that sees the connections, and, you know. And he's got it in Mimer's well, which is what? Memory. And he's looking with his right eye deep into the memory of everything. So he still sees out of that eye. He hasn't sacrificed it. So no, he doesn't have to retrieve it. He's using it. Okay. It's what he's telling us what to do. You know, he's got his two ravens, Hugin and Munin, mind and intellect, memory. And he says of the two, they go out every day and they look out over the of Midgard. And of the two, the one he worries about, the one that he worries about the most is memory. And don't forget. Don't forget what we are, where we came from. Okay. So let's see here. I'm looking for the questions here. Sean 303 question. Is a demon the ultimate consequence of avoiding surrender of ego to source? I am most joyous when I embrace death with all of my heart. The less I am, the more I am. I don't think let me see if I understand your question. Is a demon the ultimate consequence of avoiding surrender of ego to the source? I don't know that I would say that. I would say that, you know, I mean, I can see the logic behind that. So I'm not going to say that that's wrong, but it still sounds a little, a little fundamentalist kind of dogmatic kind of thinking there. So I wouldn't say that. What a demon is ego. Yeah, it's kind of hard, but I mean, on the surface, I'm going to say, yeah, there's some truth to what you're saying. There's some truth there. Let's see, what else? Emerson's Coffee, Bike, and Rum Shop, thank you. She plunked down $5, thank you. She says, question, what is the best way to study the runes and prepare ourselves to read runes for others other than binge watching your videos? Well, watching my videos, of course, is the best way to... rune readings and shamanically connecting to the runes are kind of two different things. I would say, in all seriousness, the best way to study the runes is to read my books. Read my books on the runes. If you're not familiar on my books on the runes, then go here. I've got videos here too, but go and read them. You're going to get some understanding and some interpretation of the runes that come directly from the language itself that a lot of, in my experience, a lot of modern rune scholars have missed. They don't understand the runes. So that's the best way to study them. Being with the runes is a whole different thing. I seriously try to avoid talking about specific runes in depth because then I will be forced to experience them. And I learned that when I went through on the thunderwizard.com channel. By the way, if you really want to learn runes, I talk about the runes there. So subscribe there at it's the $25 level, and I've got a lot of discussion about the runes. But when I went into depth and talked about each of the runes, I had to live them. And some, that kind of transformation is, maybe that's just me. I don't know if that happens to everybody, but that's what happens when I talk about the runes, I become them. And so, people ask, is it okay to tattoo the runes on yourself? I wouldn't. There's no way you could get me to tattoo the runes on me. No way. I would have to live that rune, and I don't know what challenges are in store for me with each rune. I have a lot of respect for them. I respect them that much that I'm not going to tattoo them on my body. I find that to be, so presumptuous and so limiting. You think that little of the power of the runes. The swastika. That's I think that's the Sanskrit word, swastika. Our ancestors called it the filfat. But it wasn't just used by Indo-Europeans. It was used also by Native Americans. Hopis used them, and they were used by Navajos. And Navajos would use them in sand paintings. But sand paintings were never meant to be permanent. They were meant, when you made them, they had a magical effect on the world, and then you were supposed to get rid of them. Anything that had a swastika in it, you had to get rid of it because it was a sign of transformation. And what do the idiots wear? The idiots put on their body swastikas. And what they're asking for unconsciously, see, here's the thing about racists. Racists are, on the one hand, very insecure and frightened. They're extremely frightened. Obviously, because they're afraid of anything they don't see as themselves, anything they don't understand, different from them. But they're very frightened. But what's happening unconsciously is they are pleading to be taken out of their ignorance. That's what you don't understand about them. On the unconscious level, they are pleading to Thor, because it's Thor's, swastika is Thor's sign of the thunder god, transformation. And specifically mental and psychological transformation. They are in a tremendous amount of pain because of their immaturity. And they are asking, please transform me. And they are exhibiting their ignorance with their exclusionism and their racism and their bigotry and their hatred. But when they mark themselves like that, Thor says, I will do that. I will transform you. And whether it's in this life or another lifetime, they may be asking to be, experience what it's like to be on the other side of hatred, maybe in another lifetime. They don't understand. So you can't play around with these things. Playing around with runes and, you can't play around with this stuff. I mean, you can, but, and the universe will give you leeway. But, when you know better, you can't play around with it anymore. So you're not saying anything like that here, but you're asking the best way to study the runes. In all honesty, I think the best way to study the runes is to watch my videos and DVDs and books about it. That's what I think. Preparing yourself to do rune readings for others, you don't have to worry about that. The runes are fully capable of doing their own thing. Just get out of the way. Because this is something I learned a long time ago. I started, what really taught me about the runes was I was living in the woods. I had no money. I had no job. I was living in a cabin in the middle of the woods in North Idaho on the edge. I was the last cabin on that dirt road that had electricity. You went past that and you were off the grid. There was a sign in my yard that said, National Forest. I was literally on the boundary to the National Forest, to the Selkirk Mountains. That is the only place in the lower 48 that still has a full complement of all the natural indigenous wildlife. Grizzly bears and moose and elk and all that stuff. In any case, I was living there and I needed to do something for a living, and I was studying the runes and I wanted to write about the runes, and I decided to become a phone psychic. I'm not a psychic in that way, but I would do rune readings, and they didn't know that. They just knew I was giving them some reading, and that's how I learned the runes. You don't need to prepare. The runes will talk to you, and they will talk through you if you release yourself. So study as much as you want, but at some point you just gotta go and do the readings. So the short answer is don't worry about it, especially you. I already know you're ready. You can start now. You don't have to prepare yourself. Miguel M. Question. I codependent and have nice guy syndrome, and it's because my father, he's sociopath and made my fam all crazy, and he made bad things to me, and I just get insane thoughts of doing crazy things. What do? Go get help. Do you honestly think that there's something that I can say to you in a video in 30 seconds that's going to fix that? I mean, I read the other thing that you said. I didn't repeat it, but I read the other thing that you said and what your father did to you. You need help. Go see a psychologist. Go see a psychiatrist. Get help for that. Okay? Stop screwing around. There isn't a meditation or a word that I'm going to say that's going to heal that. It's like somebody comes on here and says, I've got a bleeding, pustulous, infected, what should I do? Go to the fucking hospital. Go get some help, man. Okay? Seriously. Go find help. Let's see, where did we go? Lokia, question. Thanks for that. It does feel like a cleanse. It's my second day out here alone. I would like to meditate. Would you recommend the Hula breath at this point? Well, listen, you know your body right now better than I do. It's my hat's off to you that you even want to do that. They say that the man flu, the man cold. The feminine can do a lot more with a cold than the masculine, apparently. So, if you're able to want to do stuff when you've got a flu, then all of my hair is off to you. having said that, in all seriousness, I don't recommend it, but if you feel like you want to do the whole breath, go ahead. Listen to your body, and your body will tell you whether or not it's going to help you or not. So I trust you, but you don't have to do it. If you want to do it, feel free. Test it out. You'll find out pretty quick. Rami, question: is there any similarities between Ketu and Odin? What an excellent question. We just talked about Ketu last time. Ketu is the Vedic god of death. He's the Vedic god of also enlightenment and transformation. He represents the things that you've mastered in a previous life, which means it's something that you really desired, and once you got it, you went, well, that's kind of cool, but it really didn't satisfy me, and all right, whatever. And that's what Ketu ultimately represents. Ultimately, your attachment to your ego, to your identity. You will ultimately realize that that is a limitation, and it will be taken from you. You will let go of it. And when you do that, then you will have achieved enlightenment. Again, what is enlightenment? Enlightenment is nothing more than you have achieved all of your desires. You do not reincarnate because you are punished. That is not how it works. Karma is not a punishment. Karma is when you have gone out of integrity of yourself, which we all do. This is a school. We make mistakes, and you can't learn if you don't make mistakes. We go after things we think we want, and we're mistaken about what it is we think we want. And, for instance, I talked about racists. Racists think that what they want is to only connect with people of their own race. That's not at all what's going on. What they want is they want to connect, but because they feel so frightened, they feel so unworthy, and they're so lonely that they only feel comfortable connecting to people they think they can relate to. And of course, they only relate to people that superficially look like them. Right? So, but what they really want is to connect with everything. What they really want is to feel the love of everybody. But they're far too frightened for that. So they're going to make that mistake. They will come back, and they will be on the other side of that. They will have to suffer persecution next time around. Not because it's a punishment, but because when the soul disconnects from the body, it goes, wow, I really missed the boat on that one. I don't want to miss the boat on that again. I want to learn how to connect. So put me on the other side of that. So this is, again, people ask me all the time when my videos on the Matrix, and I talk about we choose to be here and there are no victims. And if you have a life where you can honestly say because of the objective facts that you have been victimized, it means that this was your choice, that you said before you came down back again into reincarnation, you said, I want to be challenged in this area so I can really grow. I really want to learn. And why do you want to learn? You want to learn so you can be fulfilled. Again, the racists are going to come back, and they will have to experience, by their own choice, their soul will choose to do it. They will have to experience, being persecuted, because what they really want is to learn how to connect. And once that gets the challenge of that takes them out of the limitations of only going and connecting to who you think you are like, and you can connect to everybody, then what they're going to get is to be loved, to really have connection, to really have union with people. And then that desire will be satisfied. So it's all about satisfying your desires. That's why there's no such thing as, I don't believe that, that there's any such thing, that there's, that anybody is spiritually superior or inferior to anybody. Just because one guy's out in the wilderness and he's a naked yogi in the wilderness, and he's so spiritual, he's given up everything. Well, he's going to find out that that's not fulfilling either. He's going to go, wow, I did that, I mastered that, and that really wasn't all that fun. Let's go back this time, and this time I want to go the opposite direction. I just want to have, alcohol and hookers and gambling, and he wants to go in the other direction because he wants to fulfill the flesh. And then he's going to go, yeah, I did that. That wasn't really fulfilling either. I've got those things out of the way. Okay, next time I just want to be a normal human, and I want to live and have a family and have kids. This is what the soul does every single time. And enlightenment is nothing more than when you've gone through every single experience that your soul wants to experience in however many hundreds or thousands of lifetimes. The soul sits there after the last life it does, and it goes, let's see, do I want to do anything? Mountain climbing? No. Surfing? No. King of the world? No. I did all that. You know what? I think I'm done. I can't think of anything that I want. I mean, I'll go back if you want. It's fun down there, but I don't need to go back. And then the universe says, no, you don't have to go back. Let's do this next thing, which is this. Which we'll talk about in other videos. Okay? So let's see, what else? Yeah, so the similarities between Ketu and Odin. Yeah, in order to get to Odin, Wod. Don't tell me what I'm writing. I know what I'm writing. Wod-en. Wod-en. He who is filled, consumed with Wod. Wod. You know, we have the word in English, wow. Wow. I believe that's what the word is. Wow. Wod. They do that in India as well. Wow. Wow. Means, you know, the ecstasy of, you know, your mind is blown. You're this guy. Your mind is just totally blown. That is Wod. He who is made up of that. What was I saying? I forgot what I was saying. Because I just, whoa. I got into the wall of it and I forgot what I was saying. Yeah, Ketu and Odin. Yeah, so in order to get to that, now I remember. In order to get to being filled with that, you have to release your identity. Now, Ketu will take, he'll obliterate it for you. So that when Ketu comes up in your chart, I better put this up here. When Ketu comes up in your chart, Ketu jumped in there for a second and obliterated me. When Ketu is in your chart, he's in everybody's chart, but when he's stimulated, what happens is that's what he does. He obliterates something that you are attached to. And it's very, very challenging. This week has been a week of Ketu for me. Ketu has come and obliterated my attachment to my my wife's who passed away 8 months ago, almost 8 months ago. My attachment to her physical form and her physical personality, incredibly painful. And so there's sort of like a, you know, that dullness that you have when a wound is healing. I've been kind of in that state of dullness. Interesting, people think that I look happy, you know, so that's a good sign. It means that I'm actually working towards healing. If what you see is happiness, it means that my spirit is shining through. But I'm not miserable, but this has been a very tough week. And, you know, seeing her in a different light. So in order to experience Odin, Ketu has to happen first. You have to first go through Ketu. That's why it's a sacrifice. He sacrificed himself to himself. He sacrificed himself, little s. Odin sacrificed his self to his self. You see, you get what I'm saying? He sacrificed who he thought he was. I am this, I am that, I am these things, my name is this, I do this, I like that, I don't like this. Those are the things of our little self. The big self has no limitations. The Atman, the soul, the Saul, the Saul. So it's true connection to the soul. And Ketu has to come in and obliterate your identity. So Odin is doing it willfully. He is willingly tying himself and hanging upside down in this tree. And 9 long nights means the 9 aspects of the self, which are the 9 worlds. The 9 planets represent the 9 worlds, and they represent the 9 aspects of the individual. Let's see if I can go through them right now. No, I don't have time to go through them. We do that when we do rune readings. So this is why do you think I do Vedic astrology? Vedic astrology is showing you in this life what aspect of the world tree of your 9 selves that are working for you, working against you, what you have to strengthen, what you need to learn from. This is why there are 9 planets. This is why there are 9 worlds. This is why the number 9, this is why Odin is so into the number 9. There are only 9 parts of yourself. And those 9 parts, he goes through each one of them, goes through each aspect of his self, which are each one of the 8 directions, each one of the 9 planets. See what I mean? That's why this all comes. There's a reason why I do all this stuff. It's not random. There's a reason why I do all this stuff. And somebody said earlier, I appreciate it. Somebody said, now I understand why he talks about the Vedic so much. Now I don't know what it was I said that made them realize the connection. But to not see the connect. Not that this person didn't see it, but to not see the connection between our Vedic ancestors and our Norse ancestors, and to not see that they're both pointing back to an original Indo-European tradition, to me is, I don't understand how people can't see that. There's some people on a really level will go, yeah, the Vedic is nice, but why does he talk about it? How can you not understand that? Again, I'll say it again. They are the only religion and the only culture in the world that still retains its original Indo-European religion unbroken. The Hindu is the evolution of the Vedic. Still the same thing. And as I said, they will never be conquered because of that. Never. I don't know about the United States. The United States may come and go. We're not that old. But the Vedic Hindu tradition has been around for a very long time, and it will, as long as they stay connected to their ancestral tradition, there will never be an end to India. I don't believe it. Some people say India is the most spiritual, well, the Indians say India is the most spiritual place in the world. Well, we could argue about that. There's a lot of very spiritual places, but the essence of that is true because they've never given up their belief. I mean, they never have. I have nothing but ultimate respect for that. How could I not? How could I not? That's Odin. I'm talking about Odin today. And so you hear what's coming out of me is coming from Odin right now. This is what Odin wants you to understand about this. This is what Odin is. This is what the Othal rune is all about. Again, people use the Othal rune to back up their racist nonsense. If you really understand the Othal rune, you will want to see yourself in every authentic tradition that goes back into prehistory. I studied with Africans, I studied with Taoists, studied with Sikhs. They all have that understanding. It goes back. Even the Sikh, even though the Sikh religion is not Vedic Hinduism, it is still a branch. A lot of people don't understand that. People think Sikhism is a combination of Hindu and Muslim. That could be the furthest thing from the truth. The Muslims, and the poor Sikhs that wear their turbans, they get, attacked by idiots because they think that they're Muslims. Muslims killed a lot of Sikhs. Sikhs fought against Islam. Anyway. There's a lot of desire coming through me wanting to show the ignorance of people. The ignorance of people who think that they know who Odin is. It's very sad. Anyway, I could go on about that for a long time. So let's see if there's any other questions here. Um, Jedi Black Knight. Question. Odin sacrificing his eye. Is this analogous to Shukrakarya, the planet Venus, losing his eye? I'm not familiar with that. So I can't answer that, but it's very interesting. They would both be, Mercury and Venus would both be connected to that same essence. So I don't know. I can't answer the question because I'm not familiar with that part of the mythology. I have to educate myself on it. But that's interesting. Now I have something to go research. Thank you. Iowa X question. Would body painting a rune for a time be of use? Of course it would. But again, do you know what the hell you're doing? Do you really know what you're doing with that rune? Again, I'll talk about the Othal rune. Some racist guy paints Othal on his body. Or he puts Othal, tattoos Othal on his body, thinking that he's standing up for his people. He is asking to have his understanding of his people totally transformed. Does he really want to go through that? Does he really want to know what that's like? Because he's going to have to give up everything he thinks he knows about his people. So just be aware of that. You want to put a rune on your body, go for it. But you better be prepared in this life or in a later life. The runes especially. Listen, I teach Vedic mantra and the aksharas, which are the syllables. They're very powerful as well. Runes are a whole different category. Runes are pure Kundalini fire. They are pure fire. I mean, I get chills thinking about it. They are a whole separate set of things. And so, when I chant the runes, it's a whole different deal. We should talk about that. I'll have to talk about that next time I take a break here. So yeah, it's useful. And if you want to do it, go ahead and do it. That our ancestors believed in living fearlessly. Our ancestors, would be willing to die in the process. Like Odin, he sacrificed himself to himself. He died to himself. A very extreme thing to achieve enlightenment. So if you think that you can do that and you want to do that, now that you're talking to me, I will tell you it's going to have a different shift. If you hadn't talked to me, you would be given a pass because the universe will give you a pass if you don't know any better. But once you know, you're not given a pass anymore. I know because I've learned it. I've proved it to myself. So now you know. The runes are nothing to play around with. And definitely, if you're going to put something on it so you can show somebody, look at my rune, your ego is involved, forget about it. Forget about it. You are asking for major transformation. Most likely it will be very challenging. So yes, if you feel that you can handle it, look at me. Do you see any runes on my body? Have you ever seen runes on my body anywhere? And I am a teacher of the runes? What does that tell you? I don't have the ego around. I don't think that I know enough that I know what I'm doing to put runes on my body. If you know better than me, and maybe you do, be my guest. I wouldn't do it. Okay, let's see here. Gathered Minds question. Would you ever trade an hour for a consult? I could share with you a secret on how to make more money with your business. If you're interested in that, I've purchased your books. Let me just see if I understand what you said. You're going to teach me how to make more money with my business, and yet you're not willing to pay for an hour of my time. Are you making that much money that you have to get a free consult with me? You don't see the irony in that? I don't do that. If I knew you and you had earned that reputation from me, you may be right. I don't know you. Maybe you are brilliant. Maybe you do have something of value. But listen, if you really honestly want to respect what's coming through me, you're going to have to pay for it. You're going to have to pay for my time. And there's a lot connected to that. And that's there for your benefit. You get what you pay for. So I don't know you. I haven't sought you out. I haven't asked for your knowledge or your wisdom. If I had, that would be something different, but I haven't. It's disrespectful from my perspective. I'm talking about me now. It's disrespectful for me to give away my time and not charge for it. That is something that the universe has been very clear to me. That if I want to be helpful to people, I have to charge for my time. People want to trade all the time, and I get it. And sometimes, there are some things here. This was a trade. It was worth it to me, but he had already earned my respect in a lot of ways. So maybe you have the right to be that presumptuous. I don't know, but at this point, I'm going to say no to your very kind offer. And the fact that you've purchased my books does not somehow ingratiate me to you. It means that I owe you something. I make almost nothing off the books. If you buy a book, do it because you did it for yourself. Don't tell me about it. Okay? Do it because you did it for yourself. But thank you for the offer. Right now I'm going to say no. Harold Dale, question. In the ritual that you provide, what are your benefits for facing in a certain direction? The direction has to do with, let's say you want to worship Mars, right? And Mars is in Libra. Libra is a Venus sign. So the direction for Venus is southeast. So that means that when you do a Mars mantra or a Mars deity mantra, if that is in your chart, you face southeast because Mars has said, I need to learn from Libra. I need to learn from Venus. So Mars is worshiping Venus. And Mars wants to face in the direction of Venus to learn from it. And that's, you can only get that, every chart is different. So you need to understand, what's in your specific chart. And so that's what the ritual is about. That's why the direction is so important. Oh, God. Let's see how far this line of thinking goes here. X-Fox, question. What does the term racist mean to you? Can any other race be racist besides white people? Oh, my God, do I want to tear you a new one. You're racist. You have racist tendencies or you wouldn't even ask that question. So what I'm hearing you say is that when I use the term racist, you feel guilty. And guilt is self-directed anger. And so you respond to defend yourself by saying, well, other races are racist too. You already know the answer to that fucking question. Seriously, grow the fuck up. I'm sorry, but that's not plain to you? People, think about your questions before you ask them. Think about what you think I'm going to say, and think if you already know the answer to that question. You didn't ask that question. You wanted to make a statement. You wanted to say, well, other races are racist too. It's not just white people. You know what one of the most racist movies I've ever seen? What was that movie called? Dances with Wolves. One of the most racist movies I've ever seen. I'll tell you why. Because almost every white person that went to go see the movie, including myself, when I went to go see it, they watched it and they got so into Kevin Costner's character because he was good to the Indians, and the unconscious message is, I'm not like those other white people. I'm not like those other racists. And yet, what is the whole movie about? The whole movie is about the white guy who goes to save the poor, stupid Indians. Like, they're so stupid they don't even know how to use a gun. And one guy uses it to hit the guy in the face, and he has to turn around and teach him how to shoot because the Indian is too stupid to know how to use a gun. And if it wasn't for him, then those white people would really go out and get him, and he's going to protect him. He's not like those other white people. This is called white guilt. Your question is full of white guilt. So seriously, wake the fuck up. Think about your question before you ask it. Because if you ask a question that's going to come out of your ego, that's going to come out of your fear, that's going to come out of especially a manipulative question like that. That is a manipulative question. You're trying to manipulate me into answering things your way so that you feel better. I'm going to slice you a new one. You came to me to learn. So just be prepared. Think before you ask. Okay? All right, let's see what else here. Sean 303 question. Given that the soul is naturally already blissful, what else is there to learn to be enlightened? What a great question. Is enlightenment a state of bliss that the soul already enjoys? Yeah, that's the whole reason that we incarnate. So, see, here's what we don't understand. Enlightenment is not leaving the body. People think when I leave this body and all of the trappings of being human and I'm in the bliss of the I'll be enlightened. Enlightenment is here now. The soul says, I need to understand I'm in this infinite bliss all the time. I need to limit myself so that I can experience challenge, and from that I can learn. The enlightenment is here. It's not there. It's here. That's why it's so important to drop the victim mentality. So important to not be a victim and take full responsibility for your life, no matter how horrible it's been. That's the enlightenment. Okay, I think I answered the question there. Knut Karstensen. Question part. As soon as people do this, they come together from... okay. Where's the question going to come in? As soon as people do this, they come together from all over, Hindu, Wicca, Norse. Do the initiation rituals have anything to do with the number 9 in any way? There's a lot in that question. I mean, I can't even sift through it. There's so much stuff thrown into that question. You want to ask me, is the number 9 in any of my rituals? Yes. You have to ask a better question. Be more specific so I can answer that question better. Donna Marie, question. Is there any value to Western astrology, or is it completely in conflict with Vedic? Here's what I understand about Vedic astrology is based on the sidereal zodiac, which Western astrology uses as well. The sidereal zodiac is the stars that are shining on you right now. 2,000 years ago, Western and Vedic, both the sidereal and the tropical zodiac were linked up because Aries had just started. The beginning of all of the signs had just started. Aries, boom, it was all lined up. So it didn't matter which one you were looking at, you were seeing the stars directly above your head, so they had the same purpose. They start shifting now because now the tropical zodiac is going off the sky above you by 1 degree every 72 years. So here's my take on that. I'm not going to say that there isn't any value. What I want to point out is that people, Western astrologers for the most part, are clueless over the fact that it's not doing the function they think it's doing. They do Western readings thinking that it's looking at the sky and acknowledging how the light is hitting us and what it's doing to us. That light on that chart, that tropical zodiac chart, no longer has to do with us. The sun. Western astrology focuses on the sun. The tropical zodiac is the Earth relative to the sun, not the Earth relative to the sky above it. That's the sidereal zodiac. So for me, Western astrology, and I'm not, this is a theory, so I would have to study it to learn. But my theory is that Western astrology is valuable if you want to see the experience of the ego, the identity. So if you look at a Western chart just simply in terms of your identity, your ego, your internal ego, then I think it may have value. But if you want to use it to understand your personality, to understand how you interact with the planets and the stars, then you need Vedic, because Western astrology is off. It's just so inaccurate because of that. I think that's, I think it reflects the unconscious narcissism of Western society, which is all about the age of Pisces. The age of Pisces is all about, the ego, the king, the queen, there's serfs, and then there's the elite. That's why we're so focused on the elite in our society. You go into other places of the world, they don't focus on the elite like we do, because we're still wrapped up in our ego, which is the sun. And that's why Western astrology focuses on the sun. You didn't think that was your question was as deep as it was, but thank you for asking that. Okay, so all right, here we go. So that's it. No more questions. I'm going to take a break. I'll come back and see if I can focus myself back on. Let's see. Am I doing this right? On some things having to do with Odin and his sacrifice. So, we'll be right back. All right, so I want to do some talking about Odin's sacrifice. So I told you that I believe that Odin sacrificed himself upside down on the Tree of Life. 9 long nights. I already explained that is in reference to not only the 9 worlds, the 9 planets, the 9 aspects of the human being, that he obliterated his attachment to each one of those aspects of himself. The superconscious, the subconscious, the unconscious, the ego, connecting to, our relationship to others. All of these are the 9 directions in the 9 planets. He obliterated all of those. Obliterated all of his limitations and his attachments to that. He died to them. It wasn't easy. Screaming, he took up the runes, it says. Screaming, meaning that it was a challenging thing for him to go through. The tree is the spinal column. So let me see if I can put this into words. In order to get to the roots of the tree, right? Some people say that the roots of the tree are up here. The top of the branches are down here, if we're talking about the spinal column. I don't know how true that is. I don't know if I even want to get into that part. But, he says when he talks about the tree, that he sacrificed himself to himself on that tree of which no man knows from where its roots run. That makes me wonder, does he know? Is he no longer a man? Because he knows the depths of those roots, the depths of himself. So there's an understanding that human beings do not know the source of their humanity, and that in order to understand that, you have to get to that. I'm going to attribute to the unconscious. You have to understand you have to become conscious of that which you are not conscious. I talk about it a lot. I've made some references to that a lot. Like I said, wanting to put what you think to be a racist symbol on your body. What you're really doing unconsciously is that you're pleading to be relieved of your ignorance. That's what's happening on the unconscious level. You're not aware of that. Consciously, you think, oh, I'm standing up for my people and the blah, blah, blah. What's really happening is you're saying, please, please free me from this ignorance. It's killing me. Please. That's the unconscious. So let's see, what else did I want to talk about here? What's coming up now is that there's 9 points on the body. We talk about the 7 chakras. There are actually 9 of them. But easier if we talk about the Taoist points of the body, there are 9. When you do the ritual of the spell of the 9 knots, you can go on to Michael, or you can go on to Amazon and look for this DVD. And in that spell of the 9 knots, I show you where the 9 points of the body are and how to, in a sine wave, to open them up. Opens you up to the 9 worlds. 9 nights. He was also opening up all of the 9 portals on his body as he went through it. Let's see, there were some other things here that I wanted to share about. The spinal column, Kundalini versus Chi. So understand, this is Odin. This is not Thor. Whatever Thor does has to do with life force energy, and life force energy and its connection to consciousness. Because Thor is a god of the mind. Regardless of what the Ancestral leader says when he went and talked about Thor, and Thor didn't think very clearly, and he was very reactive, and he had a bad temper. Total ignorance of who Thor was. Thunar, Lord of the Mind. So when we're talking about Odin, Odin is the intellect that has been transformed. So it's the obliteration of the intellect. That's why I picked that picture, because he is the god of the enlightened intellect. But in order for the intellect to really do its job, it has to be obliterated. And what needs to be obliterated by the intellect is its limitations. And the ironic thing about that is that the intellect is all about limitation. Intellect means to pick apart from among. In the word intellect is the word, the Latin word to read, legere, means to pick apart. When you're reading a sentence, you're picking apart the symbols and the letters, and then you're reforming it, and you're creating specific words. You're picking things apart. That's why people who have strong intellects make good lawyers and good, writers, and people who can pick things apart. Scientists, you have to pick things apart. Picking things apart is good, but in order to get to the true intellect, which is the fusion of the mind and the intellect. You have to be able to destroy all the limitations and still know that they're there. And this is what Odin does. Odin's direction is north. His planet is Mercury. The direction for both of them is in the north. What is in the north? The north is the mist world. The mist world represents the aspect of life force energy that has the least amount of cohesion. So it's not Gnunga Gap, the yawning chasm, the void. It's not the void, but it's the first condensation. That's why it's called mist. What is mist? It's condensation. It's the first condensation of life force energy into the material, but it still doesn't have any real specificity. If we were to go into the mist world, it would pull us apart. It would vaporize us, because we have too many specific things. My name is this, I'm this tall, I do that, I like this, I don't like that, I feel this way, I am this, I'm not that. So when you're in the mist world, all of that stuff is gone, and it represents the closest we can get in the physical realm to Gnunga Gap, the closest we can get to unmanifested potential. And so the reason why Odin is represented in the north is because he is the guardian of the north. He's also the guide to the north, which means if you need to go there, you have to have him take you there, because he's the only one that is able to have his identity completely obliterated and yet still remember who he is and what is essential about who he is. So when he takes you into the mist world, he can keep your identity intact. Of course, you will lose a lot of stuff you don't need, which will be very challenging for you. This is again why Odin is so frightening. His name Ug, the frightening one. This is why he's frightening to us, because when we connect with him, he's looking at us going, how can I preserve their intellect and obliterate all the things that they don't need? And so for us, it feels like we're dying, like he's destroying us. He's not. He's only destroying tiny little pieces of us that we're attached to. Well, I think I'm this, I'm that. And then when you die to that, then your limitations are expanded. And this is what he represents in terms of the intellect. And this is what is happening to him. When he hangs on that tree, this is what happens to him. That's why he's the only God that can travel to all of the worlds. That's why he rides the tree of life, Yggdrasil, the horse of Ygg. This is why he rides Sleipnir, slipper. He can slip between the worlds because he's not limited by his own ego limitations. We are. We live in middle yard. Midgard. It means it has a wall around it. Yard, you have a backyard. Your backyard is actually the wall, your back wall. It's the wall that walls you off, and your backyard is yours because it's walled off from other people. It's a fort. So Midgard means the middle fortress. We live in a fortress because we are in the middle of all of the other 8 worlds. We are only one of 9. And all of the other 8 worlds intersect into ours. And so if we didn't have a fortress there protecting us, that would mean all of the power of the 9 worlds would be coming in at once, and it would be too much. Life wouldn't be able to sustain itself. This planet has an atmosphere around it. It has a magnetosphere, and it has, a gaseous atmosphere and all that kind of stuff because it protects us. We've got, stuff that protects us from the radiation of the sun. This is in our atmosphere. This is in the yard, the fortress. So we need to live in a place where we can keep our limitations and our identity, right? Odin is the only deity who can go anywhere he wants. He can go into hell, come back out. Hell is the underworld. He can go to Asgard. We wouldn't be able to go to Asgard either, by the way. It'd be too bright. It would burn us to a crisp. We wouldn't be able to go off into the east, into the realm of the giants, because they would stomp all over us. We wouldn't be able to go into the west because the west is a realm of death. We would die. We would physically die because the west is the realm of time. The Vanir are gods of time and experience. They are the elder gods because they live in time. The Aesir are the gods of the celestial deities. They live in timeless perfection. We live here in Midgard. Okay, let's see what else I want to say about this. The Kundalini is about the self, is about the ego, is about the identity. So the tree of life is in fact the spinal column. And Odin hung on the spinal column, which is, the spinal column has the Kundalini. When the Kundalini rises, it means that the identity is purifying itself. Every time it goes through one of the 7 chakras, it is maturing past its identity. That's what, when people get Kundalini and Chi mixed up, it doesn't make any sense, because in Sanskrit you have 2 words. You have Kundalini and you have prana. Prana is life force energy, breath energy, and Kundalini is something else. So Odin is a god of Kundalini. He is a god of the awakened identity. People think that that empowering the Kundalini is going to give you enlightenment. It won't. In fact, Kundalini awakening and Kundalini experiences are always experiences of the psyche. That's why people who have Kundalini sickness are insane. It's because they don't know how to view their ego. They think they're having an enlightenment. By the way, Kundalini, when it opens up, it doesn't give you an experience. If you get tingly, you get hot flashes, that means that you're imbalanced. It doesn't mean that you're aware. Whether you're blissed out in Kundalini or whether you think you're being attacked by demons, it's all the same. It's your ego. It's your identity is in crisis. So a true Kundalini enlightenment, there will be no experience other than you will achieve maturity. You'll know where you stop and other people begin. That's all there is. You'll just become a human. It's not enlightenment. It's about being a fully conscious human. But the soul is not Kundalini. The soul is something beyond that. And Odin represents the fully evolved psychological intellect and ego. And he's obliterated all of the limitations that prevent you from being a true human. Okay? All right. Let's see what other questions there are. All right, let's see here. Emerson's Coffee Bite question: How is the surfing going, and when are you visiting South America? There hasn't been much waves lately, so I haven't been doing a lot of surfing lately, and I don't have South America on my calendar at the moment, but that would be a nice thing to do. Cosmo Joe question: I'm a bit confused. Did the sacrifice make Odin a god, or was he a god before? Why does that confuse you? I mean, think about that. Why does that confuse you? I would venture to say that he became a god as a result of the sacrifice. But, the other question is, what does it mean to be a god? How do you know you're not a god? I mean, you incarnated. You know, again, people don't understand what a tremendous privilege it is to incarnate. Really, they just have, you know, and that's part of the human condition. We don't realize it. But what a tremendous privilege. For a soul to get the right to become a human is a huge deal. And you pick the worst soul you can think of. Pick the worst person in history. That person's soul had achieved a lot to be given the right to become a human. So I don't know that I have an answer to your question. It's something to meditate on, though. Then again, Cosmo Joe, you've got a strong intellect. You're always trying to figure stuff out. Learn how to not know. Stay confused. That's the best place for you to be, is to stay confused. Don't try and figure out one or the other. That makes you feel safe, makes you feel in control. Be out of control for a while. Don't know the answer. Okay, let's see. Swift Data question: does Odin reincarnate on Earth to help us evolve? No. Odin was never a physical human being like you and I, and he doesn't reincarnate on Earth to help us evolve. You know, there are some historical people who, you know, in Scandinavia and wherever, who claim to be direct descendants of Odin, and that Odin was a king, and that is what humans, you know, especially in that time period in the Middle Ages, people wanted to mythologize their kings and their queens so they could say, you know, I'm descended from so and so. But no, he does not. That's Vishnu, and even that is symbolic. But Odin doesn't do that. Susie Yoten's wife, question: are you still considering doing a class about Odinic staff carriers? Yes. Thank you for asking. Right now what I want to do is, well, first, I'm going through a lot. The universe is doing a lot through me. There's a lot of knowledge that's being given to me, which I'm kind of hanging on to my seat and sort of dealing with. But when the astrology certification really starts going through the roof, which it hasn't yet, some of them are getting some readings, but when that really starts going through the roof, then I'll focus on other certifications. I don't want to keep giving out certifications, you know, without, you know, just for the sake of doing it. So I am going to do it, just not right away. Let's see. Iowa X, question: Odin's sacrifice of his eye was before the tree of life. Why? You know, if I don't have the answer, I won't pretend that I do. And I don't have the answer to that question. I will have to meditate on that. I don't even know. TCX isn't a question, but he says nobody agrees on what racism. Racism is pretty clear. It's it's any kind of exclusion or comparison based on external factors like ethnicity and skin color. Racism is pretty clear. I don't know why there's this confusion. It's bigotry, and it doesn't matter what level of bigotry we're talking about. There's spiritual bigotry, there's class bigotry, there's religious bigotry, there's ethnic, there's cultural, there's linguistic. I mean, bigotry is bigotry. Racism is racism. I mean, let's not make it more deep than it has to be. So let's stop bullshitting ourselves. Come on. Cosmo Joe, question: what preserves of the individual awareness after enlightenment? You thought the intellect is what, well, let me see if I got this right. What preserves of the individual awareness after enlightenment ascension? I thought it was the intellect. Well, let me be the bearer of bad news, my friend. the intellect is going to be the first to go. Because enlightenment, ascension, is the eradication of all limitations. The intellect, by its definition, is about understanding the limitations. I'm constantly giving you a hard time, and to your, to your credit, you still keep coming on and let me attack your attachment to your intellect. But I keep saying the intellect is about trying to prevent the eradication of self. It's about being in control. That's why, again, when you do energy work, your head hurts. Your head hurts because you are trying to figure everything out. It's coming from fear. You're going to have to lose that sense of self. Odin is all about complete eradication of the sense of self. The reason why he's a representative of the intellect is because he is the only one that shows us how to use the intellect without being trapped in the illusion of limitation. He is the protector of that. So he allows you to keep your intellect and he guides you through that. But make no mistake, the intellect will not survive. Your identity, who you think you are, will be obliterated when you achieve enlightenment. And it's okay if you don't want that. I said this to you, a couple days ago. If you want to hold on to your identity, you can. But stop bullshitting. Let's stop bullshitting ourselves about what enlightenment is. And it will be valuable for you to acknowledge the confusion and if there's any fear about losing your identity, and to really meditate on the idea of control. You and I have two different ideas of what it means to be a god. You think a god, I could be wrong here, but I get the sense that you think a god is somebody who's preserved his ego and then he's going to rise through the ranks and keep his ego. That's why you asked the question earlier about was he a god before he achieved enlightenment? Because to you a god is something else. What you want, you're going to have to lose what it is you think you need. You have to take everything you think is important about enlightenment and about spirituality and turn it on its head. Okay, let's see what else. Jeremy Davis question. Is the reason for Asgardians' long lives because they have the ability to stop all their energy from leaking? A lot of assumptions in that question. You didn't hear what I said. Asgard is the fortress of the Os, the fortress of the Aesir. By the way, here's an interesting note. In the Hindu tradition now, they still have the two gods, the celestial and the terrestrial. The celestial gods are called Devis, and the terrestrial gods are called Asuras. The word Asura is the same word for the Asgardians, Aesir. And originally, the Asuras were the gods. Indra was an Asura. But for some reason, I don't understand, there was some shift in the language, and they took the meaning of the celestial gods and attributed it to the terrestrial deities. So, and now it's translated as demon, and it doesn't mean demon in the same way. It means the Vanir, the Wanes. So we have the Aesir and the Vanir, the celestial gods and the terrestrial gods. Anyway, that's just a fun fact for you. The Asgardians, the Aesir, are the celestial deities of timeless purity. So they don't live long lives because they don't live in time. In order to live long lives, they have to live in time. They don't live in time. They live in timeless purity. I don't know if you're confusing the comic book Asgardians to the actual mythological Aesir. The comic book stuff is fun, but it has nothing to do with the real understanding of the mythology. So the Aesir are children. They're infants, if you want to know the truth. That's why they are so black and white in their thinking. That's why they represent purity. That's why they represent uh, they represent morality, because little kids think in black and white terms. Now, they do have purity, so you have to be in their realm to understand it. This is why the Northeast, which is the realm, the direction of Asgard, the Northeast is also a demon door. It's where you put your altar. You know, if you don't know where to put your altar, put it in the Northeast, because that will guard the Northeast from, because that's a realm that's a door that demons can come through. Now, how do demons come through the realm of purity? Through fundamentalist dogmatism. This is why the religions that are the most dogmatic, fundamentalist Christianity, Islam, this is why these people do really, really, really horrible things in the name of God, is because they are so childish in their beliefs and their understandings that they can't tell that their ego and their fear is attached to their whole belief system. So you put an altar there in the Northeast so that your purity can be protected from the extremes of dogmatism. So they're infants. They live in timeless perfection. So they don't live forever. So that's a misunderstanding. And this whole idea of you're asking me, do they have the ability to stop their energy from leaking? That makes me want to ask you a bunch of questions about why you feel your energy is leaking, which probably means that you have some codependent issues with your, I want to say borders, but I mean your. See, when I start talking about Odin and stuff, I start losing it. I start going out. It's hard for me to stay down here and talk. I start going into other places. Your boundaries makes me want to ask you if you have some codependent boundary issues. Susie Jotun's wife, are you familiar with any of the agricultural aspects of Odin, such as farmer, corn king, etc.? No, I'm not. Sean 303 question. After several months of Kundalini meditation, I experienced nothingness into light in third eye area, great bliss, a wind in my room, and a candle melted down. Was this immature enlightenment? I'm not going to say it's immature enlightenment. I don't even know if it was enlightenment, for one thing. You know, enlightenment has an understanding of reaching the pinnacle, that there's nothing left to reach. If you had reached that, you wouldn't still be in your human body. You would have phased out of existence. I haven't reached it. I'll be the first to tell you I have not achieved enlightenment. And I keep saying that there is no human being on this planet that has. And any human being that claims to have achieved enlightenment is either deluded or is conning you. So I don't know what you experienced. I'm happy. It sounds like it was a lot of fun, but it was just that. It was an experience. And, you know, you're assuming that it was Kundalini meditation. I don't know what that means. I don't know if you were actually raising the Kundalini or if it's just called that, but, you know, I mean, I don't want to destroy that. I mean, here's the litmus test of any experience. The litmus test of any experience is, will it change you in ways that make you more effective, more happy, more successful, and more mature, and make other people respond to you positively and feel, you know, like more and more people keep saying, wow, you've really changed. I like being around you. That's a sign that something has happened. If it doesn't translate into any of that, then it's just an experience. And don't get your ego attached to any experience. It doesn't mean anything. I learned that a long time ago. I worked with masters who could do all kinds of crazy stuff, and they were the least enlightened people I've ever known. I had experiences where I could do some really crazy things with my energy, and you know, I ultimately stopped focusing on it because it didn't bring me happiness. Happiness is the only thing that matters to me. I just want to be happy. That's all I care about. So I'm not going to say it was immature or even that it was enlightenment. You know, congratulations that you had that. Take it for what it is. You know, I was going to say this. Experiences don't mean anything, ultimately, except if your psyche can latch on to that experience and have that experience give you the motivation to take continued action in a more mature fashion. A lot of people have an experience, but then it doesn't give them the ability to change their lives. This is why, again, I don't recommend taking any kind of hallucinogen. And I have a friend of mine who I've known for a long time, and he has addiction issues. He's addicted to numerous, and he'll be the first to tell you he's addicted. Got all kinds of health problems and all kinds of other stuff. I've known him since we were kids. He's still I would still say my best friend on the whole, but he's not perfect. And so you see, I don't judge people as higher or lower or mature. I mean, that's just his life. He's still my friend. I don't judge him for any of that. But he was talking about some hallucinogen. If I could remember the name off the top of my head, you know what I was talking about. And it's a hallucinogen that you take it or you smoke it, and it only lasts for, like 30 seconds or a minute, but you end up going somewhere and have this trip. And if you can go online and type it in, you'll see people flipping out and jumping out windows and, crawling and rolling themselves up into carpets and all kinds of really funny stuff like that. And they, or people going somewhere else and you find out where they went to a whole different dimension and you see in their eyes. And he said, he was telling me about this and he was saying, but this really does do something. He said, it changed me. Now, I didn't say anything to him, but my thought process was, yeah, but so what? That change that you seem to walk around feeling different hasn't given you the ability to get your shit together. Your life is still a fucking mess. So who cares? Experience doesn't mean anything ultimately, unless it gives you the strength to then take the actions to make your life better and make other people's lives better. If it's just an idea in your head, it's meaningless. Okay. Cosmo Joe, question. Wow, you really want to talk about the intellect. You're really struggling with this. What is it then that is Odin that can use the intellect? What is the name of that element that survives, that still retains its individual will? Well, that's the intellect. You want me to give it a name? You want me to tell you what it is so that you think you understand it? The whole point is I want you to stay in a space of not understanding it. Because even if I give a name to it, that doesn't mean that you have any experiential knowledge of it. Odin's space of being is a space of experience. It's a space that you can't put words to. You're trying to use the intellect to get rid of the intellect. Do you see that? You're so dependent upon your intellect. You can't use the intellect to get rid of the intellect. So I'm just, you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And whatever that's going to take, I'm obviously not doing my job because I'm not giving you the ability to let go of that. Whatever it's going to take for you to get there is what it's going to take. And, however long you got to struggle through that, we're all struggling with something. Listen, I've come to some kind of a shift this past week, but like I said, I was really like attached to this individual there. She no longer exists in that form. The parts of her that made up, obviously her physical body, her brain, her mind, her identity, her likes, her dislikes, her faults, her strengths, all of those things are limits, they're limitations. And I think that, I think she and I were both going through this together. She may have still been letting go of herself. But I now have a deeper understanding that will never exist again. And it was very, very, traumatic for me, trying to figure out, because what I wanted what I understood her to be to continue to exist, and it doesn't. It won't. She's going to be born into another body. It's going to have another name. She might even be a different sex. It's going to be tough for me. I'm very heterosexual, so that kind of gets rid of that option, right? I mean, like, she'd be way too young for me anyway, but see what I mean? I don't know who she's going to be, what limitations she's going to give to herself, I don't know. So the only thing that I can connect to now to be helpful to her and myself is to connect to that part of her that's undifferentiated. And that's been very, very challenging for me to let go and to realize that I'm in love with all of those specific things about her that no longer exist. And now I got to switch and be in love with that which has no boundaries. It's a whole other deal. Which means that then I can move on and, maybe fall in love again with somebody else. Fall in love with somebody else and their individual idiosyncrasies that merge with mine and give us joy on the human level. I have to do that to get there. And I want to get there. I want that. All right, so. All right, so no more questions. All right, let's take a break and I'll see if I have anything left to say. Okay, there is something else that I did want to say, and I'm glad that I remembered it because it's important. So, I know that I hung on, this is Odin speaking about his sacrifice on the world tree. I know that I hung on a windy tree 9 long nights, wounded with a spear. Wounded with a spear. So he has a spear, which is named, all the gods have weapons. And each of the weapons are symbolic. Thor's is his hammer, obviously. And Odin has Gungnir, his spear. So, a spear is really important symbolically because a spear represents the spinal column. And a spear, the name for the spear in Sanskrit is very symbolic. It's called a Shakti. Right? You hear me talk about Shakti all the time. What is Shakti? Shakti is the feminine essence. It is Kundalini. Kundalini is Shakti. Where does Kundalini reside? In the spinal column. The spinal column, people say when Kundalini rises, people talk about feeling the spinal column vibrate. So what warriors all over the world, by the way, this isn't just any particular culture, but warriors all over the world, especially when they stand there in a line and they have those huge spears. We think of the sword and the shield, but that wasn't the main battlefield weapon. The main battlefield weapon were these huge spears that would go in, and when the spearmen in the front, after they had clashed and whatever, then the guys behind him would bring out their sword and their shields. But you first start with the shield and the spear. And, a lot of Germanic names have spear in it, like Roger. Roger is Hrothgar. Gar is spear, right? Some people say that the word German was Garman, the spear man. That means that the spear was especially for the Germanic people, because the pre-Roman Germanic tribal people did not have a lot of technology, so they didn't have a lot of metal swords and metal. They had wood, so they had a lot of spears. So they were fierce with the spear, and they would do. I wish I could find it. There's a video on YouTube of some guys using the spear in the way that those guys did, and they'd flip it around their neck, and they would do all kinds of crazy things with these spears. But what Odin does before he goes into battle is the other army is standing in front of him, and what and I said Odin, but the Germanic tribes, what they would do is, before they would go into battle and they're facing each other on the battlefield, somebody, probably one of the strongest guys, would take a spear and hurl it over the heads of the opposing army as a sacrifice to Odin. Because the belief is when you die in battle, you go to Odin to be one of Odin's warriors. It's an honor. This is really important to understand. Listen, our ancestors didn't go to war for the sake of going to war. And if you had to go to war, you had such respect for your enemy that before you killed them, you were giving them to Odin, which was where, and these might be completely different. Again, the racial thing. These people could be from a completely different culture, a completely different language. They could be racially totally different. You still did the same thing. You threw your spear over their heads as a sacrifice to Odin, because you were giving them a higher incarnation, as it will. You understood the value of their lives, and you were giving them by you knew you were gonna your intent was to kill them, but you wanted them to go to the next level. You wanted them to go to the highest level. So that means all of those defeated warriors, if they came from another culture or another race, guess what that means? That means that they were given to Odin, which means Valhalla is filled with people from all over the world. If you were defeated by a Germanic warrior and you were of a different race, guess where you went? You went to Valhalla. So again, another thorn in the side of the racists. But what is the spear? The spear is Shakti. The word Shakti comes from the same root word in English to shake. And it comes from that, is when the Kundalini rises up the spine trembles. Now, what warriors would do is they're standing in a line. So imagine all these guys standing in a line, and they have all got these huge spears, 10 foot long or however long they are, made of wood. When you shake them, they go. You can do it with a broomstick, or you can do it. You just shake it a little bit, and then it starts to. There's a Shakti, there's a spear, is the spinal column. So Odin's weapon is the spinal column, the spear. This tells you that Odin is a god of Kundalini enlightenment. So, and that's right there. He's wounded by it, which means that his enlightenment wounded him, I mean, it wouldn't say that if it didn't, if it made him happy, if it gave him an orgasm, it would have said that. It doesn't say that. It said it wounded him. What was he wounded by? He was wounded by his own Shakti, his own spear, his own spinal column, his own Kundalini wounded him. And what does it mean by wound? When we feel wounded, it means we're attacked. So he was attacking his own limitations. He sacrificed himself to himself. Last one is, again, I've talked about this a lot, but Jesus sacrificed him. Well, he was forced to sacrifice himself for others, which again Odin detests. Because if you have to sacrifice yourself for others, it means you don't think they're capable of achieving their own self-awareness. And there is nothing more demeaning. It's the worst insult you can give a warrior, is to say, oh, let me do it for you. You can't do it for yourself. That's not a gift. That's why Odin hates Christianity. Hates it. Because Christianity takes men's identity, in a good way. It's their sense of self, their ability to achieve their own enlightenment. Christianity takes it away. It says, let me give it to you, you stupid weakling. Odin says, if you're a human being, you have the ability to achieve your ultimate enlightenment, and only you can give it to you. You have to sacrifice yourself to yourself. So for those of you who I've given a hard time about being connected to your ego, to your intellect, this is what I'm saying to you. You have to give that up. That thing that you think protects you, that thing that you think will give you enlightenment, which gives you this feeling of control because you think you understand, because you think you know, you're going to have to die to that. You're going to have to give that up. And if that's painful for you, that's the spear. It's the spear wounding you. Your own Kundalini is going to wound you if you keep holding on too tightly to what you think you know. So that means Odin had to go through that fear of not knowing what the hell was going to happen. But what he had was this unbending desire to achieve his own self-awareness. And he was willing to die to get it. He said, I'm going to get self-awareness or I'm going to die in the process. Death is a real thing, man. Death is fucking real, man. That's all I can say. It's one thing, to see it from afar, but when it's right in front of you, especially when it's something you really care about, death is a real fucking thing, man. And it's giving me a continued awareness of, just to be in the moment and just experience and enjoy every moment that you can, because once it's gone, it's gone. I really like being me. I won't lie to you. I like how I've evolved. I like the fact that I'm 54 years old and I keep getting healthier, and that my body still responds well to exercise, and I'm getting more and more committed to my health, and I'm exercising a lot and my body's responding really well to it. And I look young. People think I'm in my 40s until I start, letting all the gray come out. People think I'm somebody said they thought I was in my 30s. I love that. But I'm going to have to give up all this. Death will come for me. Death will take away all of the things that I think I am. I did have an experience when I was 7 years old. I've shared about this. I did have an experience where I merged with what I believed to be my true essence, which was my soul. Now, of course, I was a 7-year-old and I was a Christian, so what I thought had happened is that I went to heaven and saw Jesus. Now, of course, I didn't see Jesus. What I saw was that light that you hear people talking about when they die. And they go, Buddhism talks about this, that, when you die, your first experience is to see this light. How you respond to that light will determine whether or not you're reborn again. And if you're still attached to identity or limitation, on any level, then you will avoid the light. And what is it that the people say now? That the flat earthers, they say don't go to the light, avoid the light. Why? They are so attached to their ego and they are so afraid of death. They're afraid of the beings of light. Don't go. It's trying to lie to you. It's not trying to lie to you. It's trying to take away all of your limitations. Because in order to fuse with that, you got to get rid of your limitations. They don't want to. That's why they're so afraid, or the fear, or whatever, whichever comes first. And when I had this experience, and I went to what I thought was heaven, I came out of the Earth's atmosphere, and I rose up, and I saw this light. And in my little 7-year-old mind, I said that light was so bright, if I were to look at it with my human eyes, it would burn my eyes out of their sockets, because it was so real. The experience was more real than anything I've had in this waking world. And when I came to that light, or that it felt like the light was coming to me, and then it engulfed me. And then all of my, I still felt like I had a body. I still felt like I had my face. But what I started with a smile, that then just everything vanished, and I was just pure bliss. And I was encompassed in this bliss, and I kept on saying, I'm home, I'm home, I'm home. Otha, I'm home. And then I was so happy that I didn't have to go back to that earth, because I was in the bliss of infinity. I was just a soul. Then all of a sudden the light started to recede, and I kept on saying, no, 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 don't go, don't go. And I woke up crying. I woke up weeping, because I was back and it felt so ugly and gross, and being back and like, it was just, it was like putting on an old stinky, sock. That's what it felt like. And the whole point of that is that's, I'm talking about how horrible it is to die to their limitations, but that's what's on the other side of it. So again, give up your intellect. Let it go. Your intellect is only here to serve you in the body, because without it, we can't interface with three-dimensional reality. So we have to say, that's over there, and this is here, and that's up, and that's down. Drive on the right side of the road. We have to have all those things, otherwise we can't function here. But the soul doesn't need any of that stuff. And, when death comes for you, which it will come for all of us. Whether or not death is painful or easy will be dependent upon how attached you are to your limitations, to that which makes you a specific individual. And I've seen firsthand what happens to somebody who fights that. It's not pretty. Not pretty. Very, very painful, horrible thing to go through. And we all do. It's just part of it. But once you're done with that and you let go of it, you don't have to worry about it. So, achieving enlightenment, this is such an illusion. It's going to be there. We're all going to achieve it. We already are already there. We're already enlightened. But we've chosen to limit ourselves to have fun. So have fun, because that's all there is. I swear to you, that's all there is. When we're done with this life, we're going to look back, and the only thing we're going to care about, as we're facing that light, as that light is coming towards us, we're going to ask ourselves, did I do everything I wanted to do? And if the answer is no, then you will turn around and you will come back. It's the only reason that you'll walk away from that light, is because there was something else that you wanted. And I think, religions, do a disservice by saying, they're not enlightened enough. They're still attached to the material world. So what? There's nothing wrong with being attached to the material world. It's fun. When it stops being fun, you won't come back. So I don't make that distinction, spiritual and unspiritual. It's all spiritual, all of it. It's just a question of, are you having fun? And if you're not having fun, it means that you're wrapped up in your ego. That's all it is. Just ego and pride are the only things that keep us from enjoying every moment. And attachment and limitation and fear and all that stuff. And I'm living through that as I continue to release my soulmate. I continue to release her, and now I'm more able to just see her as a ball of energy. I still desperately want to connect to her, but it's getting easier now. Because now that I see that I'm still human and I have human needs and I have human, and she doesn't relate to that, I can see I'm not relating to her anymore. The pain was trying to relate to something that didn't exist anymore. That's the painful part. Because every time I thought of her, I thought of all the physical and the limitations about her humanity that I liked that are gone now. And that's the painful part. Now that I see her as that ball of light, an infinite ball of light, now I can connect with her from here, and I don't, now I'm starting to realize, oh, I'm a human and I need to connect to other humans with their limitations. It's just giving me the ability to separate. Okay, so I think I've gone through everything I want to say. Let's see if there are any questions here that I can answer. Everybody with all their opinions. Seriously, guys, you guys want to share and talk to each other about your opinions and all of that. You can't hear what I'm saying. You can't learn what I'm teaching you if you're trying to talk to each other. You guys, because I'm talking on one level, and you may have other things that you think about, you're going to connect with each other because you guys support each other's intellectual level. You don't have to agree, and you don't have to understand or relate or even like what I say. But stay with it and listen to it. The more that you talk to each other and show off to each other about what you know and what this means, it keeps you away from what's coming through me. Seriously. I get on people's cases and I give them a hard time, but drop it. See if you can listen. You don't have to like it. You don't have to get it. Again, I can't stop you from doing that, but it gets in the way of your ability to hear what I'm saying. Let's see. Iowa question. Could that be considered a spell to capture the soul of an enemy? Who said anything about capturing the soul of an enemy? I never said anything about that. I talked about that the Germanic warriors would throw the spear over the heads of their enemies to give them a good death so that they could go to Valhalla. There's nothing about capturing the soul of an enemy. I don't know why you would even ask that. Yeah, I'm sure there is a spell to do that, but what a ridiculously stupid thing to do. Why are you even asking that? It has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Let's see. Ken Demas. You're coming here and you're doing, there's a lot of things I'll tolerate, but what I won't tolerate is somebody talking about Christianity on my channel. So you are now, my friend, going to be blocked from my channel. You will not be able to comment anymore. See ya. You want to understand about what Jesus is? If you've watched all of my videos about Jesus, and then you can come on and have something to say, then maybe we'll have something to talk about. What was that? All right. Again, question. Sandra Lavini, question. Do you think that the negative things that you have pointed out about Jesus... Oh my God. Sandra Lavini, you're new to my channel. Please have the respect to ask informed questions. Your question shows that you haven't bothered to take the time to find out what I've taught about Jesus. Okay? Go watch my videos about did Jesus really exist? Go watch this video. exist. And I will give you a pass because you don't know any better. You asked a question. You had some respect in there. But if you come up with another Jesus question, I'm going to block you too. Jesus does not belong on my channel. I think that's it. Rami, question. I got a bit confused. Now do I have to be attached to my limitations or not? I never said you had to do anything. You don't have to do anything. That's the point. The point is that we are already everything that we want to be. Whatever we think enlightenment is, we already have it. And that we choose to come here because the soul wants to experience limitation and have fun and learn and grow. That's the only reason. So it's not like when we're done with it that all of a sudden we're going to, it's not like, salvation. Salvation says that you're sinful, that God hates you, and then, you're given a salvation. And you rise to salvation, and then you get to live in bliss forever. It's not like that. Your soul is already infinite, timeless, all-knowing, all-powerful. Your soul is already fully enlightened. So, it just depends on what the soul wants to do. You don't have to do anything. If you choose to stay attached, you'll have experiences and you'll have challenges and you will learn from that. And when you're done, you'll decide if you want to go back and do it again or not. If you decide not to be attached, then you can go after that. But, not wanting to be attached, people are so attached to the idea of not being attached. There's so much grasping and attachment to salvation and enlightenment, which is why there's so much money in it. So, why even strive to do anything? Again, there's only one thing that matters, is just having fun and being happy. And if you're honest with yourself, you can be honest about how happy you are and how unhappy you are. And if you're honest with yourself, you'll be able to see where your ego, where your pride, where your fear is getting in the way of you being able to be happy. And then you will have to go through the temptation of wanting to hold on to that pride or not, or that fear or that ego or whatever. That's all it is. It's just a learning. The soul is really learning how to experience and enjoy itself again. And ultimately, every soul will come to the same conclusion. Ultimately, every soul will say, wow, I had it this whole time. That was fun, but now I see I've had it this whole time. Right? It's like when you buy something and you don't like it, so you want to get a better one, and you go, oh, I like the one that I had. I had it this whole time. Or you have a good relationship and you screw it up, and then you say, I didn't realize what I had until I lost it. That's what the soul is doing. The soul is just going through all of this, and then it's going to realize, oh, I've had this whole time. That's what it's all about. What's most fun is to be connected and like Woden, be experiencing the essence of being. Once it understands that, then it won't need to come back because it's too much fun. Malcolm Wolf, question. Why would somebody incarnate if they only had a few things they wanted to do and finish them early in life? I don't understand your question. There's a lot of assumptions there. How do I know they only have a few things they wanted to do and finish them early in life? What do you mean? Did they die? I don't know what you mean. Why do people die early? I don't understand anything about this question. Why would somebody incarnate if they only had a few things they wanted to do? People incarnate because they want to have fun. I don't know, have a few things to do or a few things they wanted to do. There's only one thing I want to do. Well, that's not entirely true. The main thing that I want to do is surf. I love surfing. It's just my whole life revolves around surfing. I've got 11 surfboards in the other room. I only need probably one or two. I got 11. And I'm going to get some more. Because it's the one thing that gives me joy. I only have one thing. I want to stay as long, and that's one of the reasons I try and stay healthy, because, you know, there's going to give me another 30 years, and it's going to be a lot harder to go out and surf like I am. My body probably won't be able to do it. So I'm trying to stay alive and stay as healthy as possible to do that one thing. You know, there are some other obvious human things that I really like, I want to keep doing. So I don't know what you mean by why would somebody incarnate if they only had a few things they wanted to do. I don't, and you finish them like it's all of a sudden you're going to finish them. Who says that once you find that one thing that you won't have multiple lifetimes? You know, maybe I'm going to come back another 5 or 10 times and surf. I don't know how. I don't know. A lot of assumptions there. Cosmo Joe, question. Why does this, by the way, that question, the way you ask that question tells me that you may not really know what it is that you truly want. You may not know what your true soul desire is. Your true soul desire is that thing that you have to have more than anything else. It's that passion that drives you and gives you the greatest joy. Somebody doesn't ask that question unless they don't know what it is that they truly want. So maybe you haven't figured that out yet. Not a judgment, but that's not the question of somebody who has a passion that they can't live without. Cosmo Joe, question. Why does the soul want anything if it is limitless? Man, what is with all the questions? I can feel the dissatisfaction and the fear and the confusion and all your questions. You should ask your own soul that. What are you asking me for? You should be asking yourself that. What's wrong with wanting anything? What's wrong with that? Why is that a problem for you? All the judgment that you're putting to attachment and limitless and being beyond attachment, haven't you heard what I've said? The whole point is to be human and to have fun. That's what your soul wants to do. You're afraid of your soul, Cosmo Joe. You're deathly afraid of your soul. There's a lot of fear. You would have to go through a lot of fear to find out what it is you truly want and lose yourself in the enjoyment of it. I don't know you, but that's what the questions tell me. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm getting this close. There's a few people, you know who you are. You keep needing to throw in these, you want to help other people. You want to answer, you want to like answer questions with me. And you don't speak for me. So I'm getting this close. I don't know if I'm going to do it, but you know, there are people that come on and they have to talk about what they think. Somebody asks a question and they have to bring their 2 cents to it. You're not hearing what I'm saying if you feel the need that you have to then add to that. And if you feel the need you have to come on here and help others, you know, and say something that I didn't say, or if I missed something, and you're going to explain deeper what I said, you're not hearing what I'm saying. You're not listening. Anyway, I don't know if I'm going to do it yet or not. You know who you are. And if you don't, maybe you'll find out sometime soon. All right, so that's it. I do think, yeah, 2.5 hours is plenty of time. Business. Astrology.thunderwizard.com. You want to find out some of the aspects of the 9 worlds, which are the 9 planets that are working for you, working against you to help you achieve your greatest desire, to help you achieve the greatest success in life. Go to astrology.thunderwizard.com. If you want to learn my version of astrology and be able to create your own astrology business, either on my channel or on your own, you can go to astrologycertification.thunderwizard.com. Whoops, astrology, no space. Astrologycertification.thunderwizard.com. If you want to, since we're talking about Kundalini, you can learn about chakras and a really powerful meditation to open the chakras. I think it's chakras.thunderwizard.com. thunderwizard.com. I could be wrong, but I think there's that, since we're talking about Kundalini. If you want to connect to the most powerful energy practice in my repertoire that I can teach publicly, and that many people, including many Qigong experts, have come to me and said this is the most powerful thing they've ever experienced, go to qigong.thunderwizard.com. If you want to learn shamanism from the roots up, all the questions people are asking about which direction to face and the 9 worlds and the elements, all of that, go to thunderwizard.com. Start at the beginning. By the way, that's the best way to support the channel. Every time that you purchase something, whether it's a book or a DVD or you become an apprentice, you are supporting this channel, which allows me to come to you, to spend time researching or spend time meditating so that I can come and teach and do these teachings, and to continue to give out the free teachings that I give on the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel. If the best way to support me is to go there and to subscribe at whatever level you feel that you want to. Okay, so that's it for me, my friends. I'm done. I need to eat and relax. And so that's it. Thanks, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.